Welcome to Lift Your Leg. This is Monique Canstey from the Naughty Dog in Victoria, BC, author of As a Dog Thinketh.
And Jill Brown from Calgary, Alberta, the Bag Lady.
Tonight we get to answer questions. Thank you all who sent questions in to us, and we are going to try to do our best to answer them.
We may have a couple of glasses of wine in us at this point, so take it for what it's worth.
Jennifer sent a question in about her darling dog Finn. And Jennifer's been in a unique situation that she herself got bitten by a dog in her apartment building. And her dog is now acting incredibly difficult in her building. And I'm not even sure this is a question we can answer because his inappropriate behavior now is 100% deserved because he watched his mother get attacked.
Oh, he was there when she was bitten?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just going to skim through her question.
Okay.
He's acting very on edge while our condo building property ever since I was bit.
Oh dear, the dog was right there when they walked out. Okay.
And she got like a brutal bite. It wasn't minor here.
Yikes.
So I think sometimes with our reactive dogs, it's in absolutely impossible situations. And aggression is not always inappropriate. There is a time and place for aggressive behavior. And with Finley, when he was aggressive, when you were actually mauled in the leg, he was right. And now, and I'm saying this knowing you and knowing him, so forgive me if I'm incorrect, but I can only imagine now how reactive you are in yourself after having been savaged in the leg, that I'm sure his response is still correct. So I have no idea how to guide you on this.
How do we know how Finley is with other dogs? Is it just this one particular dog that he's reacting to?
He was in day school here on Tuesday,
Okay.
and he ran his full legs off playing with dogs he'd never met before. For probably a minimum of 45 minutes, this dog galloped and galloped and galloped, just running crazy circles with his big, long doodle legs.
Okay.
Inside, he was super. At the beginning, we did pass-bys with him on leash in a residential neighborhood. He was a teeny tiny bit tense, no inappropriate reactions. So he minded his manners, he held his shit together, but I could feel his little bit of inattention and stress, which was gone shortly thereafter when I let him off of leash at home. And he
Okay.
ran and played. So he's trying to be a good dog. He wants to be a good dog, but he has an issue here that he's struggling to let go, and I'm struggling too.
I don't think he's in the wrong.
He's not.
That, to put it in a human perspective, that's if I was walking down the street and some man came after me and my sister beat the hell out of him, every time my sister saw that guy, she would have the same reaction with good reason. But if my sister is okay with all of the other people we pass, then I don't have a problem with that. To me, it's an issue with that one particular dog, and that dog is the one that created the issue.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would spend a whole lot of time and energy trying to fix that. I would just try to avoid that situation with that particular dog because I don't think it's ever going to go away.
I agree 100%. Your dog has a reason to misbehave to this one.
Yeah.
If I saw that other dog coming, I would have an umbrella on me and I would open it in that dog's face.
Yeah.
So I would walk with weapons I could use in that dog's face so he could not do that again.
Yeah.
I would never turn my back on that dog so that he couldn't bite me in the bum again.
Yeah.
And as for your dog's behavior, it's legit. He has a reason here.
Yeah.
He tried to be good once and look what happened to you. I think you're going to have to thank him under your breath.
I was going to say I would almost be inclined to reward the dog for that behavior, but that can bite you later on
No,
with other
I
dogs.
think this behavior will faster go away with permission than it will with telling him off.
Okay.
You are more likely to get compliance from him by saying, thank you, darling, rewarding him and saying, sit, than you are by telling him, knock it off, don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I wouldn't, definitely wouldn't tell him off for doing that. He has every reason to be on edge with that particular dog. I mean, he saw it happen. He's got a
Yep.
reason to worry about it.
Sue
Yeah.
them and get rich. That's the motto of this story here. Sue them and
Exactly.
get rich.
There you go, Jennifer. Sue them, get rich, share
And
the
buy
wealth.
Finn 20 acres with the money that you get from the lawsuit.
Yes. Share the wealth.
Yeah, exactly. Give me a key to the property, please.
Yes.
Here's my good advice on this. All right, Vanessa. Any tips on handling a dog that gets so overwhelmed by environment, stimulus, that they have no drive to work or use their brain at all? Or even just more in-depth explanation on building drive, desire to work in dogs that aren't super food toy driven would be awesome. I'm going to my bravery class on this one.
Okay.
So if your dog is getting in tuned into the environment, that's the first thing you need to be training against. So my Italian Greyhound was that dog, and pretty much all of my training was environmental with her. If we were doing a healing pattern, it was on top of a tarp. If we were doing downs, it was with cold water dripped on that tarp. If we were doing retrieves, it was having her dumbbell underneath balloons that were at the end of the building. Everything was environmental for her because she was so focused on excuses not to have to do her work. And I think your dog's sounding a little bit the same, but I wouldn't focus the environment with his work. Right now, I would just focus on the environment with his play. It would be races into a tent filled with balloons. It would be running over a tarp full speed or heeling over a tarp, which might be easy for him right now. Heeling into baby gates, racing around baby gates, heeling into baby gates with balloons tied to them, heeling into baby gates with balloons tied to them and racing around them with those balloons and getting attracted to the hair on your dog's butt, which happens if they're helium. So I would start bringing a huge environmental component into your training.
But like you said, not your specific exercise training.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't work on healing in difficult environments. I would work on crazy environments with play, then bring in 2 seconds of healing, then back to play, then 2 seconds of healing, back to play. And if I couldn't even get the play at a level that I wanted, it would stay there. I would never bring the healing in. So get rid of the work for now and just go to stupid, insane environments and see what you can get from that.
We did one thing with Sizzle with you where you built a tunnel that was draped with a tarp
Yep.
with a ton of like balloons thrown inside the tunnel.
Yep.
And then we did just fun racing recalls through it. If she couldn't start doing a racing recall, you started a right at the beginning and threw a toy in there or a cookie in there so that she would go in and go out the other side. But it was still an environmentally challenging thing for her to get over.
This
And
week in bravery class, we had 2 baby gates. They were probably 4 foot apart, and each baby gate was covered in balloons.
yeah,
And gradually, I moved the baby gates closer and closer together, and the dogs had to chase their owner through. Once they could easily chase their owner through with the gates closer together, then we held the dogs back and threw a cookie in. So it was now stationary with no drive from the owner going through.
okay.
And the dog had to just run forward and get the cookie. And for certain dogs, that was way too much. They couldn't do that. So my darling Whippet, who was my board and train this week, got to be the demo dog. And so for every dog that wasn't brave enough to step forward into the balloons to eat his cookie, my Whippet gladly did and ate their cookie.
That's mean.
So my whippet ate a whole lot of cookies this week. And but he's polite enough that he didn't race in and overpower them or anything like that. He would politely step in and stick his little needle nose in there and eat it. You need that type of thing where there's a tiny little bit of competition if they want to slack off, but not too much pressure that they're feeling stressed by it in any way.
And if you have yourself in a situation where she's saying if she's overwhelmed by an environmental stimulus that they have no drive to work, if you find yourself in that situation, such as a trial situation where there's something that goes on and your dog just loses their mind and can't get themselves out of that, don't even try. Don't think that maybe if you pull them out and go in the ring, it's going to get better, because it won't.
Agreed.
Just leave them in there. If they're I've been through this scenario bang on,
We all have.
and I pulled my dog out thinking maybe she was better. Ears were back, tail was tucked. I'm like, you can spend the day just hanging out in your kennel, getting used to the building, and we'll see what we have at the end of the day. There would be the only thing I would see if I threw her in the ring was backpedaling. I would find myself further back than I was at that point. So I pulled from everything. The next day we came in and she was better and we did our thing. Bottom line, if you find yourself in that position, don't push your way through it. Take the loss, swallow your entry fees if you're in a trial situation, and just wait for the next chance. But absolutely, the building bravery makes a huge difference. Work on that environmental stuff outside of a structured training situation.
And make it fun. Turn it into a game.
Yes.
Laughter can get them through so much. Turn it into a competitive event with some friend where you end up giggling because it's just such a dumb scenario. You can't believe you just did that.
Yeah.
And just your laughter alone will pull him through it.
And also, don't help them too much.
Thank you.
Do you remember the first time we did that with Sizzle in the tent?
Yes.
Yep. Yep. Throw a cookie in there. The first time I went in to help her, it was all good. The second time the cookie got thrown in there, I went in to help her and I got verbally slapped. And it was don't help her there. Let her do it on her own. And she managed to get herself in there, worked through the environmental challenge on her own, found the cookie on her own, and was so proud of herself.
We must be careful not to deny them of their success by babying them.
Yeah,
If they're brave enough to walk in there, shut up and let them work it out. And so
exactly.
many of us want to praise their bum as they're working away from us. Don't praise a bum. Praise their sweet little faces once they actually accomplish something.
Yeah.
So if you see their tail wagging, let them go. When
Well,
you feel that they truly need help and they're looking at you, then like get it, help them in some way. But if they're working away, shut up. Let them have their moment.
yeah.
And then when they do it, explode and tell them how brave they are.
And that's a really hard thing to do, because when you see the tiny little steps as they're going away from you, you're seeing their bum, but they're getting a little bit closer to that cookie. You want to tell them how wonderful they are. It's really hard to bite your tongue, but do it, because when they succeed on their own, it's so much more to them. It means so much more to them to do it on their own than to have you cheerleading in the background.
It does. And my other thought for Vanessa is you can create all of these overwhelming environments just by shopping in your recycling box with creativity in your mind. So if you go shopping in there And then think of environments that your dog might have to face. So you can add like light plastic to string and then add a fan or like wind of some form that's going to move it, attach it to baby gates. You can create so many environments that are way harder than your dog will ever have to face in the ring. That's what you need to be thinking of. So think in the terms of dogs. Think like shadows, little black spots in their vision,
Tape on the ground.
tape on the ground,
Yep.
movement in their vision on the side peripheral, scents that might be coming, wafting in from elsewhere, shiny things that they're not expecting to be seeing. So think weird little stimuli that might be affecting your dog, and then try and turn that into something that's not overwhelming, just a slight distraction that you can run through it at mayhem with your dog and teach him that you will turn him into a high drive when you see that.
Yep.
That's what you're wanting to do.
Yep.
All right, next one. I'm trying to understand the difference between reactive and aggressive and how to differentiate. Both of my
Oh,
dogs are reactive to some extent, but one has bitten a guest when he was 10 months. The guest came in ahead of me and approached the dog, and he growled and bit in quick succession. I've been so anxious to have him interact with strangers since, but have had some successful visits with house guests with lots of control, keeping in crates until calm and letting out and watching body language closely. He doesn't lunge at people or dogs outside on walks. Is he forever considered an aggressive dog? Go ahead, Jill. It's all yours. I'll drink while you answer.
in my mind, reactive dogs and aggressive dogs are two completely different things.
Thank you.
A reactive dog to me is one that's not necessarily looking for trouble, but you step into their bubble and they're going to lose their mind. They're reacting to something that has happened to them. If you have a dog that is in your living room and somebody comes in to visit with you and they walk over, sniff them, and bite them, that's not a reaction.
That's aggression.
That is an aggressive dog. That needs different training than a reactive dog. This makes me twitch a little bit because back 25 years ago, when reactive became the new term, I remember back then thinking, this is not reactivity, this is aggression. And there are two completely different things. They're different. A dog that bites someone because they walk by, the dog is not reacting because somebody has walked by them. The dog is aggressive.
So in
A
this
dog,
case, though, he bit someone, came in her house. Is he always aggressive, or is he only aggressive if someone comes in her house?
but she invited that person in, correct?
I
Guest
think
came in
so.
ahead of me
Yeah.
and approached the dog, and he growled and bit in quick succession.
Yeah.
To me, that's an aggressive dog. That's not reactivity.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
So to me, that would be careful of anyone you invite in for this dog's dinner. He doesn't like people in his home. He's going to consider them intruders. You need to be careful of people that you are donating to him in your home. Is he showing the same outside of your home? And my gut would say he probably will be if you give him enough time
Yeah.
to age out. However, you have a chance to stop that from ever becoming reality. So make sure your loose leash is in place, get on him, and learn how to read him out in public, and make sure you can keep it just inside the home. Then, once you're at that point, then start to eliminate it in the home very, very carefully. A panting dog is a safe dog, closed mouth dog is not. I would be careful in areas close to my home, close to my car.
I was just going to touch on guarding. And
Yes,
is this a dog that is just guarding its home?
yes.
Again, not okay if this person came in with you, whether he's in front of you or behind you. To me, it doesn't matter. They came in with you. The person came in alone. Fair enough. game on.
That's what happens.
Yeah, if somebody comes into my home without me, I would be more than happy if my dog took a chunk out of them. But yeah, I wonder if that's a bit of a guarding thing in this is my home, you're not allowed in.
When Harry was becoming a young man, so probably about 10 months, I had people over for dinner. And Harry went postal, like absolutely postal. He didn't realize people would come in my house. Clearly, I'm antisocial and don't have people over enough. And I guided him through it. And it actually took a while. It took longer than I thought. And I wasn't sure if I was going to get him through it. I was kind of prepared to just throw him out in his crate in the car. But he did get through it. It probably took him, though, about 8 minutes. It was a while. And then he was fine for the rest of the night, and he never did it again after that. So maybe it's something you have to teach him if he's guardy, that kind of dog. I'm not sure that's useful information for you.
If the dog is perfectly fine outside of the house, then I would certainly think that is definitely a possibility.
When in doubt, send me a quick video. Send me a quick video of him outside, relaxed, with a stranger approaching. I can tell you.
Yep. I was going to say, and then one with somebody coming in the house, but you probably don't want someone to get bitten again.
Yeah, I'd be careful with anyone coming in your house because he's already told you those rules. Those rules we're clear on now. He
Yeah.
established those. Those ones we don't need to reestablish. But if you're concerned about someone approaching him outside, send me a quick video. Show me his facial as someone's approaching him.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see that. I don't think you'll see it in a video. I was going to say I'd like to know what kind of a dog that is, what
Yeah.
breed. But
All right, next one. The puppy I bred is starting to be scared of other dogs when she meets them running off leash on the trails. She's super confident with people and good with dogs when she is on the leash. When we meet off leash dogs and she is off leash, she runs crying back to me. Not sure if I should put her on leash and pass by or try to expose her to more off leash dogs. I can tell you what I do with my dogs. And I live an extremely passive training community where people don't like to put any rules on their dogs. And I think you live in the same community. And people's dogs, for the most part, are just rude. I do not let my dogs meet any strange dogs. So if we are approaching, and this applies to all my board and train dogs, also all my training dogs. If I'm approaching any strange dog that I don't know, I call them back, hold their tabs, get them past, give them freedom again. I never allow them to go past with freedom because I don't trust the other dog. And you live next to me, you should have the same rule. Assume their dog's an absolute jerk and untrained. Control her going past it, give her freedom once she's past it. I think she needs that help. And realistically, that dog probably is a jerk that you're going past because you live in the same place.
two things.
Yep.
Your dog's always wearing tabs is a great idea
Yep.
because you always have something to hold on to.
My
And holding,
dogs off leash are wearing like a 2 foot leash with no handle on the end, but just a knot. So I can call them back and I have instant control without having to fumble for a collar or anything like that.
yeah.
Tabs are a lifesaver.
Dogs tend to get a little bit sketchy, not sketchy, a little bit more on edge when you grab onto a collar
Yes.
versus a tab.
Yeah.
So you can control them without creating that kind of tension that makes them go off. My other comment about this is a puppy I bred. This puppy that you bred has been with her mom from the time she was born. How much exposure has she had out in the real world without mom there as a security blanket?
It's a huge question.
Yep. So I would.
So for me, I had my last competition dog, Reggie. And Reggie, I defined as a wasp. So when I was walking him out with my other dogs, he was so busy buzzing around their heads and pestering them that he managed to receive zero socialization because he saw zero of the outside world. It wasn't until he was out on his own that he was like, holy shit, what's out here? But I'd taken him everywhere with my other dogs prior to that. But he
Yep.
saw zero of it because he was too busy buzzing around pestering them.
Yep.
Maybe your dog's the same here? So, how much is she actually seeing of the real world while your other dogs are out there? Be aware of these dogs are absolute pests because we think we're doing everything right by socializing them in the way that we are, unaware that they haven't seen a single thing.
Yep. They have too much that they're focusing on right in their tiny little circle that they're not seeing the world.
And ironically, I should completely empathize with these dogs because I'm like that. It's true.
It's true. I can't even argue that. And I can't tell you it's a bad thing either.
I
Ah.
am that dog. Maybe that's why I
I,
relate to these dogs so well.
uh,
It's funny, I was discussing it with a client this week as to why I understand some of these weird dogs. And it's exactly that reason. I am these dogs.
yeah.
It's not because I'm clear and functional and well
No,
socialized.
no,
It's
it's
'cause I'm
because you're
not.
foggy and dysfunctional and disorganized.
I'm going to sip wine to that. Thank you.
How many years did it take you
Ah.
to realize that? Oh
Oh,
my.
I think probably I knew that when I was 20. I've known it for a long time.
Oh,
I've never been in self denial.
well, that's a good thing.
I think those around me have been.
They're just hoping for the best for you.
Ah,
Oh.
shut up, Jill Brown.
I'm not.
Next question from Allison. Allison's always nice. Let's see what she has to say. Okay, so you and Jill talk about the things that dogs must have, recall and a down or sit being two of those things. That's three things, but whatever.
Sit or a down is one.
I know.
Okay.
I know that, but when I ask this question, you will say that it depends on the dog in front of you. But are you able to give any examples of how you train these things so they are rock solid? Maybe examples for a hard dog and for a soft dog. Huh. Or yours, Jill.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Or
um,
maybe give examples of things that definitely don't work. And then there's another one after that. Say when a dog finally returns on the third or fourth recall request and the owner is mad, could you talk about why the dog wouldn't want to return to an angry owner? Oh, I can answer that one.
thank you.
I picked that question.
Okay.
I was in Germany with Peter Sherrick, the most brilliant dog trainer the world has ever given us. And he had a pet dog that was a relative's dog of some form. I can't remember. It was a Labrador. And he threw a toy for this dog, and the dog would never bring it back. And then you can no longer catch a dog after the toy was thrown. So he threw the toy for this dog, and the dog didn't bring it back. So he asked it to bring it back nicely. The dog didn't bring it back. So he yelled at it in an unnice voice. So the dog would then come towards him and his voice would change to like super nice. Dog would then say, fuck you, and go in the opposite direction. Then his voice would get mean again. And German's such a clear language, like so clear. You would hear, super. Ah, super dog.
Mach schnell!
Exactly. Every time the dog fucked off with a toy, it would be nasty. Dog would turn and come back. Super darling, here we go. Dog would turn away again. Blah, 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 blah. Dog would turn back, give him the toy. And every time the dog turned back, it was like, super darling, that's what I want. And no word of a lie. Within 1 minute, Peter had this chronic running away dog bringing the toy to his hand. And my husband and I stood there in like utter shock of what did we just witness? And doesn't everyone do this? No, they don't.
What I
And
don't
that
understand.
was the gist of the conversation. It ended right there. He handed back a totally trained dog that now had a recall and would bring a toy back. And
But but what's not computing in my mind is when he gives the dog praise, That's when the dog turns around and fucks off again.
But then he would instantly get angry. So the dog would then realize and then turn back and get praise. And literally, just by marking each behavior,
As good or
he,
bad.
as good or bad, he changed that dog in a minute of just bringing him the toy. It was mad. I have never seen anything like it in my life, and I'll probably never see anything like it again. But the funniest part was, doesn't everyone train dogs this way? No, not North America.
Okay, no, but you know what? You do. And this is going to sound like I'm stroking your ego, but it isn't, because I don't do that with you. But
Good.
when you have a board and trained dog that let's say you're putting them to bed at night, and you call them to you and they go, screw you, and they turn and run away. Your voice immediately goes, hey, don't do that. And then you go into, super, here, good puppy, good. And then if they turn and run away, they get that anger verbal again. And I don't know if I have recognized that after you learned it from Peter
Probably.
or if you were doing it beforehand, but I've seen that on numerous occasions that dogs are like, yeah, I don't have to listen to you. And you get the angry voice and they listen, which is funny because you'd think angry voice would make dogs go, and I'm out. But they don't. They stop and they're like, oh, oops. And then the good voice brings them in a little bit closer. Like you said, you might have to do it a number of times, like Peter was doing with the retrieve.
I think I went to this years ago before Peter, and I'm not even pretending I have a tenth of Peter's skill because I do not. But from the horse people, I learned that if they run away, go after them and make them run. And as soon as they turn and face you, invite them in. If they turn away, make them run. If they turn and face you, invite them in. So I've been doing that for years. But Peter added such a simple twist to it that made it so much faster and clearer for the dog.
What was his twist? It
Uh,
sounds like the same thing that he's doing that the horse people are doing.
it was, but I think in the moment of the dog actually wanting us to throw something for them, the dog has a reason to bring it to us. Whereas I'm wanting to put a dog in a crate. Dogs, no, thank you. I'd rather not. This dog that Peter had actually wanted Peter to throw his toy for him. There was a reason for the dog to want to engage with Peter, whereas the dogs with me not wanting to go in the crate had a reason to avoid me
Fair
and
enough.
stay away.
Okay. See, and I with my dogs, I've just gotten a second toy. Back in the day when I used to do chuck it retrieves,
Yeah.
I would throw a toy, and then when the dog would come halfway back, I would pick up the ball sitting in front of me and act like I was going to throw it so the dogs would come the rest of the way back. And it took no time at all before the dog was like running back to me, doing a circle to go out again for the next ball.
Okay, I'm focusing us going back to Alison's question. So you and Jill talk about these things the dog must have: recall and down, or sit being two of those things. I know that when I ask this question, we'll say that it depends on the dog in front of you, but are you able to give any examples of how you train these things so that they're rock solid?
I have
Of
to
hard
find.
dog and soft dog. Soft dog means super, super careful with instant release of pressure. So if there's going to be a hard voice, there's going to be backwards movement from me, drawing the dog in afterwards, getting them into my space, maybe even jumping up on me into my space afterwards. That's a soft dog. And I think the soft dogs are the ones that require us to be super fantastic trainers. Hard dogs don't, soft
Ag-
dogs do,
You can make so many mistakes with a hard dog.
and get
With
forgiven.
Yep, with a soft dog, there's very few mistakes they're going to let you get away with.
Yep. So soft dogs, you almost always must drive that dog into your space. get them up on you, and get them back into drive afterwards without cheerleading. That's the $1 million part right there. Hard dogs, whatever, beat them. They don't care.
Exactly. And
I'm joking with the beat them, but the don't care part is honest there.
to me,
Get them to do whatever you
cheerleading,
want. They're gonna forgive you because they don't care. They just want the toy at the end.
they just want to do the next part.
Yeah,
To me, cheerleading and begging are often synonymous.
yeah.
And yeah, never get yourself into a situation where you're begging your dog to do stuff. Because they might do it for the first 3 or 4 steps and then they're like, yeah, no, you're squishy and not worth my effort.
Okay, we have the next question. It's going to be a hard one too.
Wait, I have to find it again. Okay, who's it from?
Mia, above that. My question comment might be similar to Allison's. Allison should be forbidden from posting.
Yeah, you're out,
Perhaps this,
Allison.
perhaps this is very hard to do on your podcast and you don't feel comfortable for a good reason. However, I was listening yesterday to speak for your golden puppy who you currently have as board and train. You talk about letting him know that the growlies given when you tried to remove the paper bit from him were not okay. I found myself wanting to understand what that looked like, what level of correction is given in a situation. What does that need to look like for the owners who cannot get to you, but would very much like to nip this kind of behavior in the bud? You ladies talk about the bad internet training, but if nobody is given specifics about what a properly moderate correction looks like in a given situation, then bad YouTube is all they've got. And I 100% agree with you, Mia, but you've
Oh,
stuck us in a really bad situation. Thank you.
absolutely, yep.
Maybe a topic for podcast might be a list of trainers who are doing YouTube that you feel do it well. So if someone needs to see what a correction looks like, at least they know where to go.
Oh
Or if you
dear.
could figure out a way, what we don't watch enough YouTube, we try and avoid them. Or if you can figure out a way what kind of correction is appropriate in what situation. If people are afraid to do it correctly, then they won't do it at all. Okay, I 100% agree with your questions.
Yeah.
Like 100% agree with everything you just said, but slightly hate you for it too. So here's the deal. We are in this British Columbia, Canada, far left spot where we are told that even yelling at a dog is abusive and will wreck your relationship with the dog.
Yep.
So I have to be incredibly careful what I say. Depending on where you live, you may or may not understand what I'm trying to say. I'm also trained by people from Finland and from Germany where they have had videos from 10 years ago brought to the surface and penalized people from training they did 10 years ago. So I have to be super careful what I say. So as you're hearing me on podcasts and things like that, those are the things that are always governing in the back of my brain is 10 years from now, will I lose my career because I said this?
Right.
Unfortunately, that's always in the back of my brain. However, Mia, you are 100% right. I agree with everything you have said. We're just being stifled by this current climate of purely positive, and that even yelling at a dog makes us abusive to our dog. If yelling at a dog makes us abusive to our dog, how on earth could we possibly do more and actually speak it out loud?
Yeah.
So, but I'm going to, at risk here, in the case of the golden retriever, when he did that, and this is always a scenario in these moments, there's never a perfect moment to correct a dog because you need to do it in that moment when you need to, which is never going to be ideal. If you're waiting for ideal, it's just not going to happen. You're going to miss that moment entirely. So in this case, when he did it, I was able to grab at the skin around his right ear, and I grabbed his little, so a whole lot of loose skin, and slightly elevated him off the ground like an inch and just said to him, "What are you doing? Shame on you." And just holding him there was enough that he regretted his life's choices. But fortunately, he was a nice enough dog. That was enough to make him regret his life's choices. If he'd been a stronger breed, that wouldn't have been. Generally, what I would do is correct the area of the body that committed the sin. So in this case, it would have been biting, thus his mouth. So I would have flapped like the toilet paper or wherever it was at his mouth as I grabbed him. But I don't believe I actually needed to in that moment, but I would have if he was a stronger dog. Now, as I say, all of this is best case scenario because these moments never happen when we're prepared and ready and have freeze. So that's why I always have a cracked iPhone. So,
Sometimes you got to go with what you've got in your hand.
exactly. The moral of this story is do what you can in that moment, make the dog think, oh, and then rethink your choices, consider what you did, decide if it was a good idea or not, reconsider, and decide what you should do next time. But in my experience, doing the 100% wrong thing in that moment is better than doing nothing at all.
Yep. At least you make some kind of an impression, be it right or wrong. You have made an impression in that moment. You've snapped them out of that mindset.
And here we're talking life threatening behavior. Like this dog doesn't get to do this too many more times before we literally have to euthanize him.
Yeah.
So we owe it to him to know that humans lose their shit if you do this.
Yeah.
He needs to know that so he can then reconsider his life choices. If we deny them that lesson, we are failing them in a big way. But back to your question, I try and correct the body part that committed the sin. So if it's the mouth, if it's the neck, if it's a foot, it depends what it is. I think that just made it a lot more ambiguous.
I was just going to say, give us an example of a foot.
Now I have to think of one.
Dog is dog is running at you, jumps
So
up and slams you with her front foot.
if a dog's coming towards me and moved his foot towards me, I'm going to make that foot move away from me before I release the pressure. So I'm going to apply pressure in some way that he steps that foot back away. Or if he's moving his mouth in, moves that mouth away. Or if he's shoving his shoulder in, moves his shoulder away.
But how are you doing that?
That goes back to Alison, depends on the dog. Applying pressure in some way for each individual dog.
Could be.
If it's a foot, I might be stepping towards them. I might be banging a stick on the ground in front of them as I move in towards them. Depends.
Okay.
One dog recently that misbehaved, I had a kind of a flag on a stick and banged that flag in front of her mouth, savagely on the ground in front of her mouth 5 times as I moved it and backed her away.
Okay.
So it does depend on the dog, but enough to make them move away from what they were moving into. So if their mouth was moving in, I want their mouth to move back. If their foot was moving in, I want their foot to move back.
Okay. Okay. I think that's fairly clear.
Thanks.
I had one of my mentors had said, give you a plug, Sandy.
Hi, Sandy.
One of my dogs, I think, was cutting across in front of me, just in everyday, just walking down the road. And I was gonna end up going ass over tea kettle. And her suggestion to me was when the dog gets close to you, you just keep walking and perhaps you're gonna step on their foot.
I completely agree with her.
And when they get their foot stomped on, they realize that they need to stay a little bit off to the side of you.
And I would do the same for a bike. If he wants to keep cutting in front of me on a bike, I'm going to very gently bump him with a bike on his shoulder so he learns to stay off to the left or off to the right of the bike.
Exactly.
Yep, agree.
Yep.
Next question. This should be a crazy simple behavior to train. Loose leash,
Oh Jesus.
walking.
I'm
Don't
gonna
ask Jill.
I'm gonna go have a shower now.
I've trained some pretty complex behaviors, but seem to struggle with loose leash. All right,
Where wait,
I'm
wait, wait.
skipping the rest of the question.
Where is that? Who I have to find that?
Jennifer.
Jennifer. Same Jennifer?
No.
Okay, okay,
A
okay.
corgi mixed in a Jack Russell. Aw. And 3 new border collies. All right. First off, border collies are the hardest to teach loose leash to out of any breed you can ever work with. So if you're judging your skill on your border collies, maybe don't.
What if you're judging it on your Goldens?
You're a failure, Jill.
Truth.
I learned this from Peter, but actually not in this context. He was teaching in a completely different context, but it clicked to me and I stole it and applied it to loose leash. When I walk, my left arm swings, my right arm swings, my left arm swings, my right arm swings. If I'm walking more normally with no leash in my hand, stick a leash in my hand and my left arm still swings, my right arm still swings, my left arm swings, my right arm swings. Every stride I take, my arms naturally move. So if we're thinking of a grandfather clock and my arm is that, I don't even know what pieces of a grandfather clock are called.
The hour, the second, or the minute?
The hour part of the grandfather clock, that's going to swing from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And I'm just going to keep my arm moving in this annoying way from 5 to 7, 5 to 7, 5 to 7 as I keep walking. And if I just keep walking in this way, the dog just learns that I'm annoying and he should just stick with me. But if my body's always moving in this predictable way, it's not that I'm correcting them or anything like that. It's just something annoying my body does as I walk. And it's a really easy way for them to learn. However, it's an easy way for them to learn. It's not an easy way for us to teach because we try and cheat and make them succeed. Just be annoying. Be a grandfather clock from 5 to 7, swinging your arm, and don't let them cheat. The more they pull at 5 o'clock, the more I pull at 7 o'clock to pop them back. If you need any corrective collars or whatever, don't even consider it. Just use what you need to use to get it. And in my mind, loose leash is just a necessary evil to give my dogs the life they need to have. It's
It's
just
a,
going to happen. It
it's a,
happens on day one with every single board and train. You want to go to the beach, you want to go to the forest, you want to go to these shit boring neighborhood walks. You need to walk on a leash and not rip my arm off because if I'm going to physio, I can no longer walk you.
it's a stepping stone to freedom.
Yeah,
Says the
make it
girl.
happen.
Says the girl who
Can't have it.
can't have it.
But the hardest dogs I've ever trained on this, by far exponentially, are border collies. They're the only ones that have made me want to jump off a bridge and question my skills as a dog trainer. So if you're judging yourself on your border collies, maybe don't. Just look at your Jack Russell. Fix your Jack Russell.
Haven't been able to fix the Golden. But that's because the 3 o'clock goes to 2 o'clock, or the 5 o'clock goes to 3 o'clock.
You're a golden owner. We're leaving you alone, Jill. All right, next question. How to work on eventually removing the prong collar instantly pulls when she does
Who's
master
this?
collar.
Who's that? Sorry.
Nick. I get the feeling she only does the right thing due to pain. You're going to absolutely hate my answer. Why remove the prong collar? Leave it.
Yeah, who cares?
This is an irrelevant question. If you can enjoy your dog, if you could take your dog in public, if everything's going good, suck it up. Use the equipment you need.
Your dog has to walk. If you're going out in public, your dog has to walk on a collar. Who cares if it's a buckle collar or a prong collar? Whatever works to make your life and the dog's life more enjoyable.
And don't nag at them.
Yeah.
Just use what you need to use.
And it's prong collars don't cause pain. It's uncomfortable for them.
Yeah.
When they pull. Don't pull and it won't be uncomfortable. End of story.
All equipment works because it's uncomfortable. Even my arm swinging that I'm doing for loose leash, I'm just making my body annoying and letting the dog learn from it. So every piece of equipment that works is uncomfortable. But I actually think the front end harnesses are probably one of the worst, or the front clip harnesses, and followed as a close second with Halty head collar type things, because dogs hate them. So let the dogs tell you which one's the worst. Don't decide it for them. All right, next one. What is the best way to fend off an attack by an off leash dog?
A
Whew.
golf club.
This happened to me and my dog yesterday. Blah, blah. The dog attacked us completely unprovoked. It's happening more frequently. I kicked and flailed and screamed, and I tried to get distance, but the dog came back for a second attack. All right, I can answer this. I'm a pro. A couple of weeks ago, I had my darling board and train dog that I decided to take for a solo afternoon walk in a nice neighborhood where she could have fun and freedom and learn what she needed to do with me, hopefully a pass by of a dog. And luckily, or unluckily for me, there was an at-large dog. He was a giant breed, a year old, probably 110 pounds, and decided that she was his new love. So he came in planning to have sex with her. So he was very fresh, very happy, very unruly. Not necessarily rude, very fresh is what I would describe him as.
That's rude.
Anyhow, this was my perfect opportunity to teach my board and train at the time that, honey, you are safe with me. No one is going to fuck with you when you're with me, darling. So as he came close, I used the handle of my leash she was on and bunked him on the bridge of his nose with the handle. So he backed off a little bit, and then he went sideways, and I did a circle with the handle in front of his head. And he didn't like that fast, frantic circle of the handle in front of him. So he backed off a little bit, and he was going to come off to the other side of her. And he got bonked on the nose again with the handle of my leash. So it was the perfect opportunity to teach the board and train that I had, honey, I've got your back. Like when we're together, you don't have to worry about fighting dogs. I'll do it for you, dear, and make them go away. Generally, I'll also walk with a golf club, with a titanium club, but just saw the end off the actual club part. So you have a nice lightweight stick. And I'll use that same stick in that way of making space in front of my dog or behind my dog to keep that other dog away. And if he decides to walk through that barrier that I'm presenting, that other dog will just get bonked by my stick in a very rhythmic manner. It's not coming out of surprise. It's like my stick is moving in a rhythmic manner, like my grandfather clock again. So sticks going left, right, left, right, left, right. If the dog coming is more aggressive, stick is moving faster, left, right, left, right, left, right. If the dog's really just kind of dun, 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 coming in, then my stick will be moving left, right, left, right. My stick movement matches the energy of the approaching dog. I answer that question, Joe?
I think so. That's what I would do too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
A leather leash is a great thing. I use braided cotton leashes, but a leather leash across the bridge of their nose makes a huge impression.
It does. And our dogs need to learn that we're there for them. They need to learn that I'm their number one fan out there and their number one bodyguard.
Yeah.
They don't need to worry about shit when I'm out there with them because I've got it covered.
That's
And
a
if I
big
don't have it covered, then they need to step up to the plate.
that's a big thing for people to learn though, because I was guilty of it. I knew I had a dog that was sharp and not good with dogs getting into her space. So when dogs would get into her space, I would correct her because I didn't want her to react to that.
It's just because you're mean, Joe.
I know, and it was in a seminar of yours where a border collie came up into her space. He was in love with her, and I got after her, and you came up and got after me. You're like, no, deal with the dog that's getting into her space. It's not her fault that a dog is coming into her bubble. So it's something that people need to learn and become comfortable with, that they're allowed to have their dogs back. Don't worry
Yep.
about whether you're going to offend the person who owns the dog that you're trying to keep away from your dog. You probably are. You're going to offend them because their dog is, quote, friendly, but who cares? You don't want their dog in your dog's face.
Yep.
Get ready for it.
Next question from Wendy.
Wendy, we had a lot of questions. Okay.
Dog that is a fun police, obsessed with you, confident and insecure, positions himself in doorways. Doorways are always a warning bell to me. I don't allow dogs to position themselves in doorways. That doorway belongs to me. Growls at others. Amazing dog by himself would not.
Would
He is so complicated. He is a red heeler with a quad catahoula. Is a catahoula part that is the trouble. My question is, how do I lower the stress of my other dogs and me when he is acting like this? There's one thing for dogs acting this way in public versus acting this way in a house. They're two very completely different things. So, doorways means it's a house versus out in the forest.
Mhm.
When I had little Fox here, Fox behaved this way in the house, and Fox got chased out. Like, you do not get to guard my house, my doorways, my kitchen. That's not yours to guard, buddy.
Yeah. My
So he
house
got
is.
chased away. Like, you can stand out there and guard 30 feet back while my border collie is 10 feet in front of me, lying at my feet. So I don't allow them to guard doorways. Doorways belong to me. You can tell by their body language when they lay down how they're positioning themselves. Where is their bum facing versus where their head is facing, if they're guarding the doorway or not. And as soon as I'm seeing that, I'm getting them up and making the move. Like, hey, you get out of there. And I'll move towards them just by applying pressure of my body and get them to leave. Having said that, though, I know that's very simplistic from what you're asking because it's not that simple. And I'm well aware it's not that simple. But in the process of living in a house, they are not allowed to do that. Now, if it's Fox, which it might be from what you're describing, you're going to need a baby gate. But if he's then guarding the baby gates and dogs coming in, like Fox would actually wait around a wall so that my dogs couldn't see he was there until they stepped into that boundary that he was guarding, and at which point he would bite them. So he'd hide behind a corner and bite when they stepped into that. That shit don't fly in my house. He got chased out. So, Wendy, you need to ask us more questions because I feel I'm not necessarily giving you the right answers. But I think, regardless of breed, you may be too tolerant here. Baby Gates will be your friend, but even with Baby Gates, don't let him get away with murder. And yes, he's a quarter Catahoula, but the red healer part is highly trainable. So don't forget that part in your dog.
My question is confident and insecure. How?
Not the same, I agree.
Yeah, I'm like, that's
He's
black.
one or the other, pick.
That's black and white. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't be both confident and insecure. So he's either putting on a show trying to come across as confident and he's a very insecure dog, or he truly is a confident dog.
Or he's fakely confident.
Yeah, because if he's confident,
Yeah.
he doesn't need to do all of this garbage.
Yeah, I agree.
I would say that he's an insecure dog who's trying to come across as being a top dog, and he's not. He's,
I would probably say bold, forward, and impetuous. And then on the flip of that, knows when the hell to get out of dodge and has a good fear response and a good retreat.
yeah, yeah.
And those are the dogs right there that their next car rides to their favorite dog spot he has to share the front seat with another dog.
Yes.
Those are the dogs right there. I'm not dealing with the doorway. Honey, we're going to your favorite forest or beach, but you're traveling on the front seat with Pippa and Rupert. How are
Yeah.
you going to cope?
Yeah. Deal
And
with this
that's how
doorway.
I'm dealing with that. You are traveling now, letting your little bum be like pushed off the seat by fat Rupert, who's not going to let you have any room, and Pippa, who's going to tell you off if you try and push her off. And Pippa's not the strongest dog in the world, so he could tell her off and make her shrink on the floor. Rupert is more like a deadweight sack of potatoes who won't really notice, but that's what he's going to be sharing his front seat with. And by making him have to share his front seat there, I would fix his doorway issues.
He needs to come and spend some time with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure there's a whole lot of stuff he's doing out in the forest and on the beaches that you could take care of that would fix him in the doorways. Now, I say this never having met you or him, knowing that Fox was an absolute shit in the house. So I could be completely wrong here. But more likely than not, though, if you fix that front seat stuff where he has to share the front seat and you make him behave in the house, you could probably make it go away. Let's hope. Give us feedback. Let us know.
Yep.
All right, next one. How to retrain a poorly trained e-collar dog, one that has created a superstitious association to bugs because of the collar. I answered to this. Jill, go ahead.
How to retrain a poorly trained e-collar dog, one that has created superstitious association to bugs because of the collar. My thought would be, first thing I would do is just make a positive connection to the e-collar, in that the collar went on whenever we went to do something fun.
Okay.
So the collar itself, the physical collar, has a positive connection. So collar goes on, we go to the beach. Collar goes on, we go to the forest. Same kind of thing. I'm not sure what they mean by the collar has created a superstitious association to bugs. Do you know how to explain that? Because I'm not sure what they mean about that.
I don't entirely know, but what I'm guessing is, because I've just heard of this recently with another dog, with the e-collar, you have to be incredibly clear when you are first training it what stimuli your dog is thinking of when they get a correction. And most people aren't thinking of stimuli, they're thinking of behavior. So they're saying come, the dog didn't come, so they're zapping, completely unaware that there were flies around in that moment that they were saying come, or completely unaware there was a transition in change of terrain from grass to sand as they said come and happened to hit the collar. At the beginning stages, you have to be super mindful of what your dog is thinking of. So if they're going from light to shadows, asphalt to grass, sand to seaweed, sand to a whole bunch of sand fleas, any of those changes like that, if you happen to be calling them off at that moment, that is probably the lesson they're going to be learning, is being careful of seaweed, not come when you are called. And likewise, if they instantly see a person and get called off, instantly see a dog and get called off, the same damage is being done there. I think that's probably the issue that's going on here. People are just very unaware of the stimuli the dog are feeling as they receive corrections with electricity. Therefore, you create bugs in the brain of the dog. I just did a lesson today with a little border collie puppy, adorable little creature, and I want her. And even with her, we were being very mindful that we would let her see a dog or see a person and almost count 1,000, 2, 1,000 before we called her back. Because if as soon as she sees a person, sees a dog, and we call her back and run away, you're still going to create that suspiciousness in her mind. There's no electricity involved here. It's only positive reinforcement training with food, but the damage can still be done. They need to see a change in the environment, a person walking, a dog walking. Let them compute it for a couple of seconds and then command. So even when there's no corrections, this is something people should be being mindful of. But let me get back now to the dogs with bugs in his brain. There was another dog that couldn't run from asphalt to grass, that type of thing. Like, people just aren't being mindful of the change in stimuli when they're correcting dogs. When the dogs are first learning this stuff, you have to be so careful. And it is only at the beginning in the conditioning stages. Once they fully understand it, they're much more easy.
Yeah. I know the term hotspot, and if you have to correct a dog for something, whether it's with an e-collar or not, it doesn't matter. But if you're correcting a behavior in one spot, if you do it enough times, you create kind of a block in the dog
Yeah.
where they're not going to gain anything from that correction or that training period. You have to, even if you're in a training building and you're on the west side of the training building and you're working on drops and the dog won't do a drop, and then you have to correct that drop.
And
You
we're not even
go
talking e-collar here, just a correction of any kind.
exactly, not even talking e-collars. Go to the north or south or east side of the building after you've done that correction, because if your dog is thinking so much about this position, I get a correction in, and it might be something as simple as a no, down. It doesn't have to be a horrible correction, but if they're thinking so much about that correction came in this area, they can't get their head around that. So move to a different place that isn't considered a quote hotspot for the dog. With regards to bugs, I don't know. I think that would be something that I would just completely leave alone for a very long period of time. And I'd come back 6 or 8 months later and reintroduce the collar and be aware of that as a potential issue. And I would do my best to avoid it. But I would give the dog's brain enough time to have a chance of forgetting about that superstition.
I totally agree with this. Years ago, I had an issue with Reggie in tracking. I would bury his food, and then in August, the wasp would come and be on his food. So he'd come along, eat his kibble and the wasp that was on it. So the first year, he would just bite his wasp and move on and continue tracking. Second year, he bit his wasps, and after a few that had stung him in the mouth, he would see food and avoid it on his track, and obviously created a massive tracking issue. And like you, I avoided it. I just gave it space. I didn't do it for a while. I was totally avoiding wasp time, so I would only go when it was wet or really early before they were up. Just being very mindful of that, and the wasp issue went away. So yes, if I have created an issue like this for something, often time is a very good way to get rid of it. I think in my experience, any issue created by an e-collar cannot be fixed by an e-collar. Whatever damage you've done with one, you need to get creative and undo it without using that same collar. So
I would agree with that.
whatever you've created here, you probably need to get your dog freer and higher in drive and madder in other scenarios to overcome that, whatever it may be. If it's bugs itself, and I've known several dogs that got a wiggy with flies, that type of thing. So I'm
Yep.
assuming by saying bugs, she's actually meaning that. I have gotten them so much higher in drive in bravery class, nutty, like you would with sound sensitivity. And then also had a couple of flies living in a mason jar with them, and then got them just so high in drive they don't care about it anymore. But it has nothing to do with electricity. So I'd fix it by getting them higher in drive, remove the electricity, just bring fun in, get them a bit nutty.
Yep.
And then I would go back to my control and be super freaking careful with my electricity if I'm using it.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to, if the dog is a ball freak dog, I
Yeah.
would take them out somewhere where, like you said, a mason jar, or you could bring out whatever, a piece of steak that's going to attract flies. And I would create an environment where the dog was so interested in me and the ball that he's psycho about that the flies are going to become secondary or so far down the level of importance because the ball is so much more, or the food or whatever your dog is super into. I would be working with that high value reward around the thing that is worrying the dog.
The very fortunate part about this is the only dogs that I've ever known be crazy about bugs and flies and stuff like that are all super high drive dogs.
Yeah.
I've never known a dopey dog suddenly get terrified of flies. It's only the super high drive
Yeah.
ones. So as soon as we allow them permission to go super high drive, they forget that shit at the bottom. It's only when we're trying to suppress them with dull training that they're like, oh, and
Like
then they just become very aware of everything around them, and then it starts worrying them.
like a
But if you
place.
give, yeah, exactly. But if you give them full permission to go nutty as they initially were, they won't even see it anymore.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So that's my
Yeah,
that
rather
one.
than trying to squish them, let them explode, let them be crazy so that they can be focused on something else in a high drive state so the flies become nothing.
Yeah, yeah. Whenever you're dealing with a phobia or anything gets in close, get that dog in much higher drive, and then they have the mental fortitude to be able to ignore it.
Yep.
And I'd love to take credit for that, but it came from Sylvia Bishop. Thank you, Sylvia. That's it for our questions. Anything else, Chili Willy?
No, I think that's it. I'm ready for bed.
Thanks, darling. I am too. I have to be up early to train with Sheila.
I don't. Going to sleep in.
Freaking Sheila, 8 a.m. on a
Well done.
Saturday.
Well done, Sheila. You'll be up at 5:45 anyway. Don't try to guilt anybody about that.
Thank you, everyone. This has been a very fun Friday night.
It has. It's been a good end to the week. End to the
Thank you.
crappy week.
This has been fun. Thank you,
All right.
Chili Willy.
See you next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.